this in particular it's been an important week. I think before we even get started, we should start by acknowledging the murder of George Floyd and the systemic racism that brought us to this point. We can do better. We have to do better. And we need leaders who are going to say that Black lives do matter so we can have conversations on how to heal these wounds. On this issue and on so many others, this is it. This is Washington failing the people of Tennessee. And so, as you know, my campaign's always been about going out and talking with people, finding out what they need and aren't getting from DC. And however you want to look at this, the fact of the matter is, Black people are being murdered, and that's got to stop. Well, I launched my campaign in front of a closed rural hospital in McKenzie, and since that time, 3 hospitals have closed. We're leading the nation in rural hospital closures per person. We have an opioid epidemic that's ravaging our community. The trade war hurts Tennessee's economy more than any other state. And then, those things all have disproportionate effects on folks who, have already been held down by these policies in Washington. And then you add in COVID, and it creates a perfect storm of people wanting change. Fixing our healthcare system is the most important issue in this campaign. Mitch McConnell's Senate has done everything it can to undermine the Affordable Care Act, trying to repeal it, and now funding this lawsuit that's gone all the way to the Supreme Court. If Haggerty's elected, he's going to help him do it. Sound bites aren't going to fix healthcare, and sending me to Washington will. We need to allow the government to negotiate drug prices. We need to fix the Affordable Care Act. And if our gerrymandered supermajority won't expand Medicaid, then we need to do that in Congress. I don't know if Medicare for all will work, but let's allow people to buy in at a younger age, and see how that goes. COVID-19 has made it more clear that Tennesseans need a senator to work to improve health care rather than sending someone to work alongside Marsha Blackburn and Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump to take it away. Fix healthcare. There's nothing that's even close to it. Uh, Healthcare is the number one issue for Tennesseans. If they don't mention healthcare to me, what they want is someone who's going to bring a level of integrity to Washington, someone who won't be a rubber stamp for party leadership, but will stand up to party leadership when they're wrong and work with them when they're right. And that's what my record is all about. When I was a military lawyer, such an important part of my job was being able to tell a commander who might far outrank me, sir, ma'am, we can't do this that way. We've got to find some other way to accomplish the mission. That's difficult. That takes integrity, but it's exactly what we should require from people running to serve in Washington, D.C. And that's what I'm hearing from people everywhere I go is we want someone with that kind of integrity who's going to stand up for us and not be rubber stamped for party leadership. Well, nearly 1.3 million Tennesseans have a pre-existing condition. And the McConnell-Trump lawsuit to take their coverage away has gone all the way to the Supreme Court. Uh, People seeking treatment for opioid addiction, which is getting worse right now, are denied it because they don't have health insurance and they're instead treated like criminals. We have record numbers of Tennesseans who are unemployed, and as you pointed out, that means in many cases they find themselves without health insurance. And because Tennessee failed to expand health care like they should have, we don't have this kind of safety net that we need. And Bill Haggerty has pledged to be a rubber stamp for an administration that has tried to take health care away from Tennesseans for years. And so, and right now, they're pursuing a lawsuit to unravel the Affordable Care Act and take coverage away from those 1.3 million Tennesseans. I believe that access to health care is a right. We need people in the United States Senate who are going to say that and who are going to fight to fix health care. We need to allow the government to directly negotiate the cost of prescription drugs. Prescription drug costs make up about 10% total of healthcare costs right now. And the fact that we can't use the buying power of the United States government to bring those costs down is a direct reflection of the outsized role that corporate special interests have in American politics. And as long as Mitch McConnell is in charge of the United States Senate, and until we get real campaign finance reform, we are never going to take on the special interests that benefit from the status quo, and we're never going to get real progress on healthcare. Medicaid expansion was really a product of the Affordable Care Act. It was Congress that said to the states, "Here's your way of expanding Medicaid." There's no question in my mind that Congress can change the law to expand Medicaid themselves. You're right to point out that that might result in lawsuits and challenges. We've been going through that for years already by people who are looking to take away health care. But it's the path we need to go down. I believe that there is a legal pathway to do it. We can also create further incentives to allow or to encourage states to expand Medicaid, and we can create other fixes to the ACA. Allowing the federal government to use its buying power to bring down the cost of prescription drugs is capitalism being used to protect and protect the American people and bring down the cost of healthcare. Pat, I'm sure you'll remember Patty Murray and Lamar Alexander had a bipartisan bill that would have stabilized the exchanges and brought down healthcare costs. That vote never got a vote in Mitch McConnell's Senate, and we never will get change on healthcare as long as Mitch McConnell's in charge of the Senate. I'm running for the Senate because Washington is failing Tennesseans by not working to fix healthcare. It's why I got into this race early. I've been traveling the state physically and now virtually, meeting with people, listening to what they need and aren't getting from Washington. Everywhere I go, healthcare is the number one issue for Tennesseans. That's one of the things that really unifies us. And you add in COVID-19, that creates a perfect storm gathering across Tennessee. Healthcare is at the top of everyone's minds in a way that it never was before. This doesn't require me to do anything to unify rural and urban Tennesseans. We're all unified around making sure that we have access to health care and making sure that Bill Hagerty, who's pledged to be a rubber stamp for an administration that's tried to take health care away, never gets to the U.S. Senate where he'll be a partner with Marsha Blackburn and Mitch McConnell to stop health care reform. I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and all of my fellow officers did the same. We all understood that first and foremost, our allegiance was to the Constitution, and in fact, the training that I gave to the soldiers around me when I taught them, which I often did, was that obligation to support and defend the Constitution and to deny and to refuse an unlawful order. That's part of military culture, and so it was rare to have a true conflict. When I would say to a commander, as I talked about a moment ago, "Sir, ma'am, we can't do that. We need to do this way," that was built on long-standing relationships that we had and a common understanding that we were working toward the ultimate goal of supporting and defending the Constitution. So these weren't necessarily contentious. These were professional discussions between people with the same goal, which is what mission accomplishment is all about. And it's what we need to get back to in the U.S. Senate. The people we send to D.C. have a mission. It's to improve the lives of the American people, and they need to remain focused on that. What we need to stay laser focused on at this moment is we need to stop murdering black Americans. This second, we need to stop black Americans from being murdered. There's a lot of work to do to address how racism impacts every other aspect of our society, and it does in health outcomes and economic outcomes, educational outcomes, every aspect of society. Um, Look at the disparities in criminal justice. Look at the lengths the president has gone through to protect Michael Flynn, a man who pled guilty to colluding with a foreign adversary. The president has been defending him in court. Compare that to my experience where my clients caught up in the federal criminal justice system facing mandatory minimums and very high sentencing guidelines for nonviolent crimes. I am the only person standing up to them for them in the courtroom. We have a lot of work to do to heal the wounds throughout every single one of our institutions, and that starts the moment we stop murdering black Americans. I do fear for that. My brothers and sisters in arms put on their uniform to fight America's enemies. We have a long and proud tradition of civilian leadership and that respect for civilian leadership. This president threatens to undermine those proud traditions and threatens to turn the U.S. military against its own people. I've been to Iraq. I've seen the enemy, and it's not the American people. We've spent a lot of time as a country, and the president has spent a lot of time talking about protesters. Threatening to put the full force of the U.S. military on civilian streets makes about as much sense as defunding the World Health Organization during a pandemic. That is dangerous and wrong. Something that's really near and dear to my heart is service. And I don't just mean military service, I mean public service. This administration has sought for 3 budgets in a row to zero out public service programs like AmeriCorps and student loan repayment programs for people who serve. Those should be seen as down payments on much more robust programs to incentivize service. Service is a way for people to meet and learn from a diverse group of people, to earn money for college, to learn new skills, to get a stake in their communities, and I think could do a lot to help heal the wounds in this country. And when I get to the U.S. Senate, I intend to work on legislation to make sure that we greatly expand service programs so that each and every American has that opportunity to serve. This is you bringing up those works programs, after the Great Depression is a great example because this is a moment where broad-based American service can be leveraged for those same sorts of purposes, including allowing us to build new infrastructure and to provide for more affordable housing. But let's remember, we're running against Bill Hagerty for this U.S. Senate seat. He's the only candidate in the entire country serving on the White House COVID-19 task force. He just held a campaign fundraiser with Art Laffer, the inventor of trickle-down economics. He also made a racist comment calling minimum wage the Black Teenage Unemployment Act. They're both on the White House COVID task force, and Bill Hagerty offered inside information about the discussions that they're having on the task force in exchange for campaign donations. That's information that should be available to each and every Tennessean. That's the kind of company Bill Hagerty keeps. And those corporate special interests want to keep him in the Senate to be their rubber stamp. He's not an independent voice now. He won't be in the Senate. Bill Hagerty is even taking money from senators being investigated for insider trading off of COVID without the press even reporting about it. Tennesseans can do so much better, and we'll win this open Senate seat when everyone wanting change joins the team to make it happen. You win elections. I'm not taking corporate PAC money. My campaign is fueled entirely by individual donations. And what we do is we show that a candidate with the right message and the right team can build grassroots support, get to the U.S. Senate, and change the laws. Because right now, our individual voices are being drowned out by floods of corporate cash, but it doesn't have to be that way. We need significant campaign finance reform, which is why I'm so proud to be endorsed by End Citizens United, one of the leading groups on campaign finance reform. And we need to undo the negative impacts of the Citizens United decision. I'll work with employers and corporations that employ Tennesseans to help strengthen our economy, not to fund my campaign. No, my biggest criticism of the Congress was the lack of oversight that got us to this point. For too long, Congress has really failed to fulfill its oversight role, leaving us in a situation where we were unprepared to respond to the pandemic. The president's response was to deny the problem, and it's been chaotic and politicized ever since. We need people in the U.S. Senate who are going to hold the executive branch accountable and who appreciate that leadership means hoping for the best but preparing for the worst. Well, I mean, appropriate oversight requires a new Senate. We're not going to get what we need as long as, on any important issues, as long as Mitch McConnell's in charge. The number one thing we need to be doing right now is listening to public health experts to save American lives. There needs to be an accounting. There will be an accounting. Right now, we should be taking the lead from the doctors and the public health experts.